Hello and welcome to Batting for Scatty. My name is Tandy Houghton. You are listening to my podcast. Today I'm going to be interviewing Fred Armisen, who is an American comedian known for his 11-year career on the... Oh, by the way, when I was 6 years old, my brother was in a pantomime and I really wanted to be in that pantomime. I'd never even thought about performing before, but I wanted to be in the pantomime because he was in it. He was only 18 months older and I was told that I was too young. So I went along to the rehearsals and I watched. I could see my brother on the stage, not listening. He didn't do as good a job as I would have done because I would have been listening to the director, and I would have walked up to Santa and I would have done the little hand move and I would have said, "Out of my way," just as he was directed to. That jealousy drove me to be the performer that I am today, and I'm really grateful for that experience. When I got to England and I saw Michael Jackson perform on TV, I was just amazed. I was blown away, and I thought, wow, he's a perfectionist and he's such a versatile dancer. Everything he does, he just seems to do it like 100%. And he's so graceful in person, and there's something about that I found comforting, as it reminded me of my mum and her side of the family. So when I saw Fred Armisen, and his versatility really spoke to me. I think a good actor is somebody who can play different characters, who can observe life and observe people and then copy them and do it convincingly. And I think Fred's one of the most convincing people with accents and just the ease at which he takes on characters. So I was blown away by him. And he's also got that real grace that reminds me of my mum's family, so I'm quite drawn to that. He's half Venezuelan and I'm half Colombian, so I think there's that there as well. Fred Armisen is an American comedian known for his 11-year career on the popular TV show Saturday Night Live. And I know why they call it SNL now. It's because sometimes it's just so hard to say Saturday Night Live. He's worked with some of the biggest names in comedy, movies, music and politics. He is the voice for Speedy Gonzales, Cole from Lego Ninjago, Kevin from Final Space, which is my son's favourite, and many other animated characters. You'll know him from his TV shows Portlandia, documentary Now, Forever, and his new forthcoming series Los Spookies, which is all in Spanish. He often appears on popular series and on film, and is usually an understated character that is both unusual and very funny. My English teacher will kill me for saying unusual twice in a sentence there. Great examples of this will be his appearances in Parks and Rec, Last Man on Earth, Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Anchorman, which, by the way, if you've seen or haven't seen Last Man on Earth, that's a great concept and a really funny series. I love the characters in that. I laugh my head off. But towards the end, I was a little bit lost and a little bit like, oh, where is this going? Keep watching it, though, for Fred Armisen, because he comes in and does about 3 episodes with such a great character. I showed it to my parents and they loved it. Fred and I went for a coffee and a chat as he was in London town to perform his Netflix stand-up special, Stand Up for Drummers, which is so niche. It's brilliant. For someone who likes to turn up to the Emmys in what can only be described as mild Halloween attire, I thought that the perfect place to meet would be at the cafe in the Crypt. And I dazzled Fred with my lies and convinced him that it was called the Crypt Cafe, which it definitely is not, by the way, called the Crypt Cafe. So I'm really sorry, that's not how you say it. Sorry, the people that named that. If you know me well, you'll know that I'm genuinely scatty, and you'll be grateful for Fred helping me stay calm at the end of this interview so that I wouldn't accidentally delete the whole thing. Fred is a real person. He was absolutely there. And despite forgetting to take a photo, I'm happy that I can finally release this interview after battling a couple of sound issues. And yes, I am happy, because had I deleted this podcast accidentally, with not taking a photograph, there would be absolutely no evidence that I met Fred Armisen. So here's the interview. Enjoy. Fred Armisen, welcome to my podcast, Batting for Scatty, and welcome to England as well. I know you have been here before.
Thank you very much. We're here at the basement of a church.
Yeah, the Crypt.
Yeah.
The Crypt Cafe.
Crypt Cafe, and I love England and I love London.
Oh, that's really kind. I'm just going to ask you a few questions about your life, if that's okay.
Sure.
What was your childhood like? I know you were born in, was it Mississippi?
Yeah, that's where my parents went to college. That's in the southern part of the United States. And I had I would describe it as a good childhood. We moved around a little bit, And even though I didn't appreciate it at the time, it was good to see different countries. We lived in Brazil for a little while and in Rio de Janeiro. My mom's Venezuelan, my dad's German. So we had this, even though we were based out of New York, a suburb of New York City, we got to travel a lot, and I'm really glad we did. So I got to see all different kinds of cultures and languages and stuff.
And what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you have the ambitions to do what you do now?
Yeah, everything that I'm doing, everything that I wanted to do. When I was a kid, I always wanted to do television and music. It was the strangest thing, but I remember having that the ambition to just somehow be whatever kind of figure that is. So I loved bands, and I loved British bands, and I loved comedy. And I was a fan of, when I was a teenager and stuff, I was into Saturday Night Live, I was into punk, so somehow my life turned out where I got to do it as a living.
And did you have any specific artists in mind that you wanted to be like?
It changed as I got older. So when I was a kid, I really liked Paul McCartney. And then as I became like a teenager, I really got into The Clash and Talking Heads and bands like that. Devo, Kraftwerk. I mean, there's a million bands that I really liked. And then comedy-wise, just a lot of the SNL comedians, and I really liked George Carlin, Monty Python, obviously. I feel like everyone says Monty Python, but it's just, I think that everyone really did love Monty Python.
That's interesting, because when I was younger, I used to want to watch American television, but we didn't have Sky. We only had 4 channels, so it was difficult for me. I wasn't aware of being able to view stuff like Saturday Night Live. It wasn't until I was older and I got to watch Freeview, and at the end of CNBC or something, we had Conan O'Brien would come on, and Jay Leno. But how did you access British TV?
It was on, I think PBS had, which is our sort of public channel, had Monty Python. And then when I was a really little kid, I remember we had Benny Hill. The Benny Hill show was on a syndicated channel. I was on channel, I don't know how to describe what kind of a channel it is, but it was a very regular channel. And I remember as little kids, we just all loved Benny Hill. Then what else was on? I think the Kenny Everett show. I can't remember, but yeah, we just got it. And Monty Python, I think, was well after they had finished, but for us, it was something new. And I think the same goes for Benny Hill. I think that was an old show, but they put it on. They syndicated it anyway. But oh my God, we loved it.
So then you moved to New York.
Well, I grew up in New York, so we moved around, but we kind of were based in New York. My dad worked for IBM, so they would sort of send him different places. So they sent him to Brazil, but we had been in New York the whole time.
And did you pursue, did you go to any special kind of acting schools?
No, nothing like that. I took music lessons, drum lessons and stuff, but no acting stuff at all. And I remember my mom really liked Saturday Night Live, so it was in the household.
Is your mum's accent still very Venezuelan?
Oh, yes.
So my mum's accent has completely changed. So to me, she kind of sounds like French Chinese, but she can't hear it herself. But even people from France ask her, "Where in France are you from?" So
no, her accent stayed. Freddie, no, you have to tell them. No, it's very. It's still very Venezuelan.
Can you tell a story about your mom and say what she's saying without doing the accent?
Oh, she's beautiful. No, but that's a tough one. I can't think of a good story.
Because I feel like it's the accent that Like, whenever I say, my mum said this the other day, but if I just say it in an English accent, it's just not what happened, because it's so different when she's like, oh, Carlita, no, don't do that. Don't wear a cap. They think you're a shoplifter.
It's funny that you bring up how to dress, like, don't wear a cap. Because my mom has a real thing about, like, you have to dress nice. You have to, if you dress like a prince, they treat you like a prince.
That's so great. That's so South American, I think.
Yeah. It's funny because South America, there's so much chaos and anarchy practically in some parts of it. But there's a real obsession in my mom's family of, like, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer. And it's like this weird, they have this, like, goal that they want to be proper, but there's so much chaos.
Yeah, there's a big pride thing, I think.
Yeah.
But they're also really generous and really lovely and really warm.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. It varies from nation to nation. I had a really great time in Bogota. I went to Colombia. Oh, I loved it. It was so cool.
Is that when you filmed documentary now?
Yeah. It was great. I really, really liked it a lot. I would go back as a vacation.
Yeah. It's beautiful on the north. Did you go to the north?
No, only Bogota.
My uncle helped build a hotel. He's a civil engineer. He helped build a hotel there, or made a hotel, or whatever. So I got to stay there when I was 17. It's
what
so
city?
Pretty. Santa Marta.
Yeah, they were all telling me all these places to go, and I forgot all the names over there. You have to go here. You have to go there. I like cities. Every time I travel, and whenever I get there, and they tell me to go to some countryside place, I'm never that interested because I don't like the countryside at all. I like cities, I like sidewalks, I like the comforts of those things, and I'm not connected enough to nature to really appreciate them like I should.
Is that from growing up in New York?
It was also from being in Brazil and Venezuela sometimes. I just don't like the sun. So the sun was so uncomfortable for me that I always associate it with nature and beaches and stuff. It's always blinding and too hot, and
That's why you like it here.
that is why I like it here. And the countryside here is very different. Like, it's nice and shady and chilly and all that. I really like that.
So how did you make the route into comedy and television?
It was really weird. I was doing music for a long time, playing in bands, and we kept not getting famous. We were at this level that just stayed the same. I was a drummer. I love these guys, but we played and played and played and toured, and we had good crowds. It was nice, but same level. And I started getting frustrated. And somewhere along the way, actually, this has a lot to do with England. I got married to Sally, who's from here, and then she kind of started putting a light on my life. She's like, "What are you doing? You're playing drums in these bands? What is this?" I remember her even thinking, like, "How much are you really making?" And it really changed things. And I remember she showed me videos of Dennis Pennis, who was from here, and I was like, "What is this? What is this other world where you don't have to be a sketch comedian like Bill Murray or whoever to get into television? You can actually be a sort of underground figure and make your way in." And somewhere in there, I just started doing comedy and doing videos. And as soon as I started doing videos, everything changed. It was me interviewing people and stuff. Everything just changed. I started getting gigs and jobs doing comedy, and within a couple of years, that's what I was doing for a living. So it was just, I did this one video at South by Southwest. It's this festival in Texas, and that video made the rounds, and very, very quickly that's all I was doing.
And then did you go for a job with Blue Man Group doing the drumming for them?
That was exactly that moment. So I was playing drums in Blue Man Group, and that to me was like the ultimate drumming gig. I was like, I couldn't believe I was making any money. And I was. And so Blue Man Group taught me a lot, too. That was I'd been playing in these punk bands, but Blue Man Group had all these crowds, all these audiences would turn up. And I learned that people want to be entertained. So that was a huge part of my education. So between that and starting to do comedy, it was a really lucky thing, you know.
And did you get like nervous because doing a video is very different to being in front of a live audience, showing up for comedy, and the audience might not be up for laughing and getting those nerves, stage nerves and things. Did that affect you at all?
Well, I had nothing to lose, right? Like I had been in I spent many years as this drummer in this band that going up in front of people was nothing to me. I'd done it plenty. And I'd been met with so much resistance from audiences anyway. So when I started doing comedy, I would just do characters. And people were really puzzled. They weren't even mad. They were just ice cold. And I loved it. My feeling was I was like, well, other people go up on stage. I could certainly go up for 5 minutes. What's wrong with that? And I did. I just would go up, do some weird character, and somehow I found the right sort of like version of being weird and entertaining at the same time. All I wanted to do was be convincing. I wanted people to think, oh, is this really a Spanish Venezuelan percussionist? Is this a music teacher? I would do these different characters, and all I wanted to do is fool people, and that's all my only goal. It's very nice of you to say that.
You say you can do any accent in the world, different regions. I mean, you probably can't do every accent in the world, but it's impressive when I've seen videos of you and people shouting out accents, and you just pick on one and do it.
Well, there's certain ones I can do, and then there's some I sort of subliminally and subconsciously avoid. I don't have a handle on Ireland. I don't have a handle on Belfast. I don't have... South Africa is impossible. And I still can't tell the difference between some of the northern British cities, you know, like Manchester. I hear it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's Manchester, but I still don't really know it. So Liverpool, like I can hear it. But my impression of Liverpool is an impression of an impression. So I still don't have that, like, where it's in my own voice. London I like to do, and that's it. And Scotland I like.
And do you think it's because of your multinational heritage that you've gone into doing accents, or would you have done it anyway?
It's just that I've been around constantly changing accents, so I think that's all it is like, it's been in my life so much that as a kid, people would make fun of my accent and all that. So that's all that is, yeah.
You had an accent in Valley Stream? Oh, right, when you were in Brazil.
Right, so when I was in other countries, they would hear my American accent and they'd make fun of me too. So yeah, it's just been around me.
So you act out a lot of characters. Do you feel safer when you're being a character on stage than when you're just being you?
Yeah, it's more fun. It's you can lean into things more, and it gives you a good reason to be on stage. Then people in the audience are sort of, okay, this is a character. Gives you a license in a way.
How did SNL come about? Because that was the next step, wasn't it, from Blue Man?
Yeah, so I started doing stand-up as different characters, and in Los Angeles I became friends with Bob Odenkirk. He did this show, Mr. Show, and he got me to do a show of his for Fox, a sketch show that only did a pilot. And from all those from the pilot, I was able to get an audition to Saturday Night Live. So I just went and just did this audition and got it.
Were you nervous?
No, I wasn't nervous because it was very quickly after I'd been in a band. So I was still in the zone of, I can't believe I was just playing in Madison, Wisconsin, or some other town in the U.S., and all of a sudden I was auditioning for Lorne Michaels, the jump was so quick that I was already excited that I was in a studio, in a TV studio. I was like, I can't believe this. So nervousness didn't really play into it. It was all...
Was it intense? Like, I'm sure it would have made other people feel nervous, the whole audition process.
I just loved it too much. I was like, I can't believe this. And so, I don't know why, but I feel like nervousness isn't part of what I do. Like, it was because, for me, it wasn't like, oh, this is my big break, I better get it right. I think that would have made me nervous. But because it was like, oh my God, they flew me to New York. I get to be in this, I got a pass to come into the studio. I was already fine.
So you said you didn't have any formal acting training. So what happened when you started doing the sketches? Did they give you any sort of physical training?
No.
You just went straight into it?
Yeah. I think that, like, how do I put this in a way that isn't going to, this isn't a compliment towards myself, but this is just something that I think is a trait. That I think that people on Saturday Night Live, there's a DNA. There's something I think there's something physical in the vocal cords and the eyes or something that is the same for all SNL performers, and I think my assumption is that I have some of whatever that is.
Yeah.
There's just a type of person who ends up on that show. And I think it's as simple as that. It could be like the shape of my skull or, the volume of my voice. I don't know what it is, but like...
Wow, I wasted so much money on drama school.
Yeah. Or, I'm sure drama school works for something else or for other shows. There's so many shows now. But for Saturday Night Live, I think there's just a mix between characters and stand-up and I think music too, that don't forget that Saturday Night Live there's one figurehead, and that's Lorne Michaels, so it's his taste. I think it's a type of person that he likes. Wow,
that's amazing. I just assumed it would be really intensive, like, okay guys, you've got to do warm-ups now, and they just tell you what to do all the time.
Oh, no. It's a very, it's a different kind of test. And that's the magic of it. It's you're told nothing. You're told nothing. You show up and you just have to come up with sketches and hope that the audience likes them. And that's all you have.
Have you ever had sketches cut that you're just really gutted about?
Early on, it affected me. And then I learned to let go of that. You learn to let go of your ego, let go of thinking that you're a big genius. And then over time you go, oh my God, they saved me. Me not doing that sketch saved me. I would have embarrassed myself. Just in your ego you think, oh, this is brilliant. And then you do it in front of an audience because you do a dress rehearsal. And the audience lets you know that they're not into the sketch. So you learn. It's a learn. You're like, okay, for next week, let's throw that away. Next week, come up with something else. Forget it. Come up with something else. It makes it very disposable, which is good. Just takes you out of yourself, actually. It takes you just rip that page out, do something else.
You wanted to do this for such a long time, and then finally now you're successful and you're on television and you're a performer. And you weren't nervous going into it at the auditions or anything like that. But was there a time where you just kind of hanging out with these famous people that you'd seen on TV, where you just kind of stopped yourself?
All
and
the
went,
time.
Whoa, this is strange.
And I kept that to myself. But when I met Dana Carvey and Mike Myers and all those people, and also the original cast of SNL, on the outside, I'm like, hi, how are you? And we're speaking as performers, but on the inside, not a moment goes by that I'm like, oh my God, I've been watching these people on TV for so long. It is like walking into a TV set. Even Lorne Michaels. And also the connection to these people to music. Lorne Michaels is friends with the Beatles. Unbelievable that I'm speaking to this person who is friends with the Beatles and who all the musical guests on SNL had a huge effect on my life too. Blondie, Talking Heads, The Clash, The Replacements, all these bands the Specials that I know because of SNL. And then meeting all my musical heroes it really is the biggest part of my life. To meet all these people and to have a real conversation with them, a Sex Pistol, someone from The Clash, is insanity. It is really it makes life worth living.
Yeah, and what a show to get, because on SNL it is that constant flow of guest artists visiting, and you could have ended up working on a different show and you would have met some artists, but you wouldn't have got to work with.
It's never ending. Politicians. You meet politicians, sports figures. It's like a heightened life. Your life just becomes this heightened, intensified experience.
And so now it's like, oh, well, I've met everyone, I mean, like, just sometimes you just think, well, I don't know if I've met that person. I probably have,
Well, there's another version, which is where you've met someone and it's so brief and quick that it almost doesn't count. So you're like, okay, I guess I met them. Bill Clinton was one of those people where I met him and it was so brief and he was so busy with all these people that I was like, okay, I shook his hand, but it's not like really meeting a person. But on the other hand, I spent a good amount of time with Al Gore and people like that,
Did you miss the drumming and the punk band and the kind of musical side to yourself? Did you, when you started doing comedy, or did you?
I prefer doing comedy, but the punk drummer stays alive and all that stuff. So I still play drums, and when I do a scene as a comedian, I always the punk rock drummer is still there. And this is very corny, but if I'm in a scene with other people, I do feel like the drummer, because drummers, they support the rest of the band. You want attention, cymbals, drums. It's very loud, but you're in the back. So it is a very weird mix of ego and humility.
Yes, and you brought that influence into your series with Carrie Brownstone.
Oh yes, that's
very musical.
Oh yeah, because of her experience too as a musician. We're just two people from bands, so yeah.
If you could think of your most memorable moment from your whole career so far, what would it be?
It depends on my mood. Sometimes I'll think of something that was grand, being on stage with whoever, Paul McCartney or whoever, or Dana Carvey or Mike Myers. There are those moments, or Tina Fey. But the moments that are more meaningful to me is laughing really hard with my friends. So being in an office and coming up with a sketch, and I remember laughing so hard that I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to breathe in again. Those moments are way more meaningful as far as experience. Just laughing with my friends,
What are you working on at the moment?
The next thing I'm doing is a show about Mexico City, and it's going to be in Spanish. And we're shooting it in Chile, of all places, just because of budget stuff, and that's where it works best. And we're scheduled to do that in November.
Tell me about your stand-up show that you're doing at the moment.
Stand-up for drummers. I did it as a Netflix special, but it's just stand-up comedy aimed directly at drummers, because there's enough material that I could just fill a whole hour with just pure drum jokes, and the audience is very appreciative. So it's a good relationship.
Yeah, I saw it last night. It was great.
Oh, thanks for being there.
And thank you for my drumsticks.
Oh, my pleasure.
I loved your drumstick joke. Like, why do they do these drumsticks? And, like, they've signed it. And
oh, yeah, signature drumsticks.
And that's I love those, like, penny drop jokes. Like, there's a moment where you just go, oh, right, yeah, this is a joke. This is a joke. You're joking about what you've actually done. That's
brilliant. Yes, yeah.
And, like, the Indiana Jones joke in the special. I love jokes like that. It's like you're watching it and then you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is there any advice that you could pass on to me that you think would be really good for me as a new comedian starting out?
Well, first of all, I think you're doing it. The fact that you're actively in it is enough. That you're doing this, that you're doing this podcast. And let me try to give you advice because I always say the same thing. Sometimes people ask me and I'll say the same thing, which I do believe, which is to be around people who make you laugh, right? But I'm going to erase that. I'm going to try to think on my feet, right? Or I'm sitting down. Let me try to think of some real advice for you so that I'm not just repeating myself. I would say that you should have trust in what you already have. So the things that make you special, the things that make you different than everyone else, it's already there. So have faith in that. There's not a missing piece. There's not some, I wish I could. You don't need to wish for anything. Like, it's evident. You're present. You represent yourself well. You're in good shape. That's enough. There's evidence that you're doing great. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, genuinely. Do you have anything else, like anything at all, just to add to the interview?
I love the UK. And I'm glad it's chilly today. I have a jacket on. I like cold weather, and thank you.
I'll be honest, I was just going to do like joke questions. I was going to be like, I've waited 2 years for this interview. Fred Armisen, thank you so much. Ask me anything you like. But I didn't want to mess it up, so...
Well, there's plenty of other opportunities. We'll do it another time.
Well, my boys wanted to ask you a couple of questions. If that's okay, I'll just tag them on the end.
Please.
My 6-year-old wanted to say that, well done for Final Space. You are his favourite character. He thinks you're hilarious. And he wants to know, how much Fortnite do you play?
Wait, how much what?
Fortnite. Do you play? You know the game
So I love video games. Some of the games that I've played are a little more for my age group. Like there's a racing car game, and there's also Red Dead Redemption, which it's like a lot of it could be violent. It's like sort of Western kind of stuff. I'm not even like into Westerns and stuff, but
is that on Portlandia?
We did Grand Theft Auto on there. Oh no, or did we do Red Dead Redemption?
I think I do remember that one of the characters is playing a Western.
Oh, I think you're correct. Yes, it is the Red Dead Redemption. So, but let him know. So my answer is, first of all, thank you very much about Final Space. It's a lot of fun to do. I think it looks really cool, and I have a really good time doing it. And Fortnite, not enough. I'll just say that I should revisit it and really get in there and enjoy it. But I'm glad he's playing. I'm a big fan of video games.
Brilliant, thank you. My oldest son, who's 9, wants to know that how do you do such a low voice for Cole in Lego Ninjago? He thinks your voice is very low in that.
Yeah, that was a lot of... They pushed me to do that more. So, because the character's so sort of aggressive, to the credit of the directors, they were like, no, it's got to be more, like this kind of character. So that's like a real acting thing, where it's not like, oh, do whatever you want and be yourself. It was a little bit like, well, you're this character, so, let's try it lower. So I did that, and it's one of my favorite things of my whole career. It's like, because, there's little Legos of it, and I got all of them. I got like all the, Lego stuff for it.
And do you do that on your own? Because I've seen people doing voice stuff, and they're just like in a box doing it just to a couple of people, and they're not interacting with the actors that are playing the other characters.
Both. So sometimes it was with everyone else. They wanted some group scenes, but sometimes you're just there on your own with a microphone. It's an amazing experience just to just, be in front of a mic and just start going crazy.
Thank you for doing this interview, Fred. I've really, really appreciate it. This has definitely been my favourite so far.
I appreciate it too. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Don't forget to save it.
I'm going to look it up. Just because I'm so scared of losing it. I'm going to look it up first.
Take your time.
Fred there being a good mate, which I'm happy to reveal, he is one of the loveliest people. He's really polite and generous, and he treated me as a friend. He's been massively encouraging towards me in my comedy and helped me to believe in my own performance. I'm really grateful for the interview, Fred. Thank you so much. If you get a chance, watch him do his accents on YouTube, and don't just watch him in his main body of work, but catch him in all his cameos, because he is in a lot of cameos and he does a very good job. Next, I will be interviewing Sally Phillips. You will know her from Smack the Pony, from Alan Partridge, and in Bridget Jones' Diary as well. So I'm really excited about meeting her and interviewing her. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I really appreciate it. And if you know me, or if you don't know me, or if you see me anywhere out and about doing comedy, please come up and say hello. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love for feedback, and I just love people. I love talking to people. So come and say hi, or send me an email or something. That would be lovely. So take care, guys. Happy New Year for this coming year, and listen in next time. Listen in next time. Thank you.